Welcome back to Inner Peace Better Health. I'm your host, Sayan, and so today's episode isn't about pushing through, it's about listening to your own body and mind that I've been trying to speak to you for a long, long time. My guest today is Gazit Chaya Nkosi. Gazit's lived experience sits at the intersection of suicidality, self harm recovery, neurocomplexity, trauma, and the slow, brave work of building a life that actually feels livable. After years of intense sensory sensitivity around sound, light, movement, and even touch, Gazit was diagnosed with persistent post-concussive syndrome, or a humanoid has PTSD and neurocomplexity. But instead of turning that into kind of a push harder story, Gazit chose something quieter and much harder than that, which is honesty, accommodations, listening to the body, and questioning the voice of culture that says suffering is normal. There's also a roomy line that keeps coming up for me as I think about this conversation, and it is out beyond wrongdoing and out there. There's a field, and I'll meet you there. And that field is exactly where we're tapping in today, where your needs make sense. That's where we're going today. So, Gazit, I'm glad that you're here for this conversation.
Me too, Sayan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and likewise. And I want to start, honestly, because so much of his story, I think, gets misunderstood when people only look it from the outside. And when you think about those seasons of suicidality and self-harm, before the diagnosis, I mean, before any kind of frameworks that you came up with, what do you think your own body was trying to communicate? I mean, not just in words, but the daily symptoms that your body was telling you.
Well, you know what's interesting? The more that I learn about neurodivergence and, in particular, autism and ADHD, um,
Yeah.
I have come to realize that a lot of the things that my body was telling me uh, are common and typical for people with those sensitive nervous systems or different nervous system wiring, like in autism and ADHD. And what can happen is that the nervous system is actually saying something is
Mm-hmm.
a very big deal, even though for someone else's body, it wouldn't feel like a big deal. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, something as small as when I was a kid, feeling the like stitching on my sock was hurting me. And I would try to say this, right? Like, my sock is hurting me. And my parents would be like, of
Yeah.
course, no, it's not. You're fine. Um, and to
Mhm.
have that experience repeated in so many circumstances for so many years where, you just are constantly telling yourself or being told that your
Yeah, it's
body
hard.
wrong,
Mm.
right? And so I think one of the jobs of the nervous system is to be a lie detector and
Mm.
to say like, "Nope, that's not true." And in this culture, we're just told so many lies, that we should just feel fine, that we should always have an able body, that we should
Mm.
be able to tough it out or push it through, that we should have only, look in a way that other people have decided makes us attractive or
Yeah.
beautiful. And with all of those pressures of, ableism and uh, a world that specifically for women and people assigned female at birth says you
Mm.
have to look a certain way and act a certain way in order to be considered valuable, we can start to think that there's something really wrong with us if we're not able to do those things.
Mm.
And that can lead to suicidality, right? Because if
Mm.
there's something
Right.
inherently wrong with you,
Right.
then you can't fix it, right? You can't
Right.
um, find a path where you can make a meaningful life for yourself if you're believing these messages that there's something wrong with you. Um,
Mm.
and I heard a statistic the other day. I think it was that like 60% of undiagnosed autistic people are suicidal. And I
Wow.
think that really comes from this mismatch of like my body is saying one thing and the rest of the world is saying something else. And
Yeah, totally. But that's a huge
yeah,
number that you just mentioned. I mean, statistically speaking,
yeah.
which emphasizes this whole point that there's a constant contradiction between what's happening inside of your body. I mean, from shifting that perspective of what's wrong with me to what's happening in me, that is so important because people around you, right, they will keep telling you what is normal and what is not, but it is so important, I think, the way you also framed it from your own personal experience. I mean, why would a sock hurt anyone, right?
Mhm.
And so naturally you would think that something's definitely wrong with me, but I think it's so very important to change that narrative into what's happening in me rather. I think that's um, the most important thing to start with. And uh, it makes me think about, Ingazit, about what happens when you finally get a language for what your body's been carrying. um, so in your case, say, post-concussive syndrome, PTSD, neurocomplexity. So I'm curious to know, how did that change the way you related to yourself? I mean, did it bring I mean, of course, it did bring relief at some point of time, I believe, or or did it start from grief, confusion, or all of it at once?
Yeah. Well, I think initially it felt like a permission slip,
Mm,
like post-concussive people, people with PTSD, and people with any kind of neurodivergence are expected to have sensitive sensory systems. And so it shifted from I'm being a brat or I should just, handle it better. I'm being difficult. I'm being sensitive. Why can't I pull myself together? It shifted to, oh, there's a doctor telling me I have a valid reason to ask for the lights to turn down or to wear a hat so that I don't have to deal with the overhead lights or to wear comfy pants instead of jeans because they bother me or to
yeah.
wear socks that are too big so that they don't squeeze my leg and hurt me, right? It was a permission slip. And it made me realize that so many of us are waiting for an authority figure to tell us that we're allowed to be who we are.
Mm,
I didn't
mm,
actually need any of those diagnoses to give myself permission to wear comfy clothes and turn the lights down low and wear earplugs when things are
mm,
loud, right? I wasn't required to do that, but I was so dependent in that, cultural model of someone who has more power than me has to say it's okay. And that I think realization that like once a doctor said it, I felt relieved and didn't want to die anymore. That was a wake up call to like, I want to become my own authority so that I'm not waiting and depending on these random oppressive cultural systems that are not designed to support animal
mm,
bodies in all our unique differences and sensitivities. And how do I become more aligned with my own sense of truth and meaning and build my own life worth living that might not look as successful or, in line with what the culture wants and not have to wait for the culture to say that I'm okay or that it's okay.
mm. Yeah, after hearing you say that, I keep thinking about how much energy it actually takes to perform normal.
Ugh,
I know for me, even small accumulations used to feel like I was failing some invisible test. Like I should just push harder, much harder, and stop just being difficult. Um, But yeah, I think it's more about normalizing, really, with um, what is that? So it's again, it circle back to the initial question that I asked around what's happening in me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of it, like you said, has to do with the society, right? The culture, because he just loves pushing through. But instead, Gazit, you chose listening. So what did it cost you to stop performing the normal, and what did it give you back?
Yeah, so initially it cost me quite a bit. I left my job working in the public schools, which had been just way too challenging for me in terms of navigating like fluorescent lights and loud sounds and just high pace, having to hurry, hurry, hurry. And really, I was working as a speech pathologist, so I was actually working with neurodivergent kids, and there was such a cultural pressure
Okay.
to make them fit in. And it felt like I was like doing to the kids what I didn't want to be done to me anymore. So
Yeah.
I left that, and that was really scary because there was a lot of financial like stability in that work. Um, so I lost, sort of the stability and also the like societal praise. Like a lot of people, when I said, "Oh, I work at the public schools," they like respected that. They knew what I meant. And now I'm coaching people around the nervous system, and people are like, "What do you mean? Like, you made that up. That's not a real thing." Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I get less cultural praise around that. And my marriage fell apart. I was married, and had we had a kid together, and after like by the time my kid was like 2, I had gone through such severe postpartum depression that I was really in a bad place, and she ended up it was too hard, and we got a divorce. And so now I co-parent. I split time with my kid, and that's been a big loss. But at the same time, I think I have gained so much more than I have lost,
Mm.
because I now, I went from feeling chronically suicidal from the time I was about 11 until I was 35. And once I started just saying, okay, I'm living in the way that my body can do, the suicidality has gone away. I used to hit my head on a regular basis. That was how I self-harmed. And I'm learning now that even that might not have been self-harm. It might have been what they call like a stimming activity for autistic folks, where you're trying to decrease pain or alleviate some sensory sensitivity through that. It's not very uncommon, actually. I
Mm.
used to be so
Yeah.
ashamed. And it turns out that that mechanism helps when the nervous system's really overwhelmed. And so now that I work from home and I keep the lights low and I keep, the pace slow, and I have my slow mornings with my walks and time for meditation and art, I don't feel suicidal. I don't hit my head anymore. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't expect myself to do a lot of the things. In the States right now, it's like Christmas time, so everyone's getting
Yeah.
ready to have all these family events, and a lot of people that I coach are so miserable about it, and they don't want to spend time with their family. Um, and I
Mm.
don't require myself to do that anymore. I just don't do things that are too much for me, and it turns out that everybody's okay. Like, they may feel a
Yeah.
little sad. They may say, "Oh, why don't you just," but they can handle it. And this way, I'm actually able to be more available for my kid, more available for my clients. My relationships aren't based on obligation and resentment.
Mm.
Um, and I have gotten to become more and more of who I am, which makes my nervous system very happy and ironically less sensitive.
Wow. I think it's a very interesting transition that you mentioned, starting from being a teacher. I mean, yeah, a little off topic, I would say. I mean, how did you react to, I mean, your colleagues, I mean, telling you what to actually teach the kids? I mean, how did you react to that, that kind of pressure?
Yeah, it was so painful. I was fighting my colleagues a lot, trying to show them the research and trying to advocate for the kids. And I don't know how it is where you are, but here it's just there's never enough money. It's
Yeah,
not really about the kids. It's like
yeah, totally.
it's so frustrating. And I was getting migraines too, like I would get
Mhm.
4-day long migraines, and it was just my body being like, we cannot do this. And
Yeah.
I haven't had a migraine for 5 years now. It's amazing. If you are listening to your body and taking care of it, people think you're going to end up like on the street alone, poor with no family or friends. But it has not been the case for me. The more I have taken care of myself, the more, real meaningful relationships I've had. And I actually have more financial resources now than I did when I was in the school, which is just wild because, it's
Yeah.
not what the culture wants to tell us. The culture just wants us to be robots and be employees and go do what we're told. And
Yeah,
I,
no, I don't know. I agree. I mean, I'll take your side on this. And because yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I think I've also definitely had moments where I knew what I needed exactly. Um, which is a little bit of space, rest, a slower pace that you mentioned, um, and sometimes so still ignored it because I didn't want to look difficult to people.
yeah.
Uh, but listening to you, I think it just sort of magically, I think, make the hard moments disappear. So thanks for bringing this kind of honesty, Gazit. But lastly, but also not the least, I want to talk about one of my favorite quotes, which also started with the show with, which is beyond wrongdoing and not right doing. um, you know, there's a field, right? What does that field look like for you on a practical Monday? No, I would rephrase that on a practical Monday. So these days, Monday is motivational for a lot of people. I would make it up on a practical Tuesday, like when your body is overloaded and your mind is spinning.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, as you said that, like a sense of adventure and possibility and magic, right? Because
Mm.
if there's no rules to follow, if there's no right and there's no wrong, then I get to be a creator and an explorer. I get to go into my day saying, what's going to happen? What could happen? It's so beautiful. I already today have gotten to take a very magical walk in the woods as it was snowing. It was beautiful, like a movie beautiful. And I got to have some really meaningful times with clients and sort of address that equation that we so often are told that if we're having hardships or pain or loss, that we are bad, right? And I get to hear their stories and support them, and at the same time support myself and reaffirm for myself that hardship, pain, loss, those are not equivalent with our goodness, our value, our deservedness, that they're a part of being on this planet and that everybody goes through them. And when we take away the morality of the right and wrong, we get to be together in the pain and loss and also in the joy and the adventure and the magic, because it actually is pretty incredible that we're thinking and talking and walking and seeing and hearing all that
Absolutely.
we
Yeah,
it's
it
a
just
very beautiful planet.
I agree. I mean, it's a blessing, I think,
Yeah.
to experience the cosmos, as being a part of this cosmos itself. And That's really the thing for me, Gazit. This can't just stay, or this doesn't just stay poetic anymore. It has to be, or it is accessible right now. As in the way you explained this. And my biggest takeaway from this conversation is, I think, around the culture aspect. I mean, we don't have to live in that lie always. I think it's so very important for us to listen to our bodies and know when to take that pause, and not be too. I mean, not to overthink through, right? I mean, that's where people get it wrong. Because really the body is the best indicator you have.
Yeah.
It is the best indicators, and it is better than probably your parents, your teachers. I mean, if you just can listen to it, right? So
Yep. It
that's
will
the
never lie to you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the stuff I'm taking away from this conversation. So Giri, thank you so much for bringing such honesty into this. And just before I wrap this off with the ending note, I would love to know, for those of us listening to this right now, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can reach out via my website, which is www.therootedcoop.com. And on there, you can find a way to make a free appointment with me if you want to hear more about the one on one work that I do or the courses that I have. And I also have a YouTube channel where there's lots and lots of resources about supporting your nervous system and creating your life worth living. That is YouTube at the Rooted Co-op as well. And I would love to meet anyone who is on the journey. We can support each other and celebrate with each other.
That's lovely, Izzy. Thanks for sharing that. And do listeners, I'll have the details in the show notes for you so you can check them out at your own convenience. And with that, we hit today's mark on this episode on Inner Peace, Better Health. And guys, here's the livable life check-in that I'm going to tell. So three parts, actually, we're going to divide this in. Um, the first being, asking yourself, what is it that your body is asking for right now? And then the second one becomes, naturally, what is that one accommodation that you can give yourself today, uh, without negotiation, without negotiating with guilt?
Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, and probably also one of the most important things is, what is that one cultural rule that you can ignore for the next hour? And even one honest answer can be a pivot. You think?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you. And today's conversation with Gazit Chaya Nkosi is a proof that building a life worth living isn't about being tougher, guys. It's about being truer to yourself. If this conversation helped you, please follow Inner Peace Better Health so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who needs a softer way to survive right now, please to share this episode with them. I am Sayan. This has been Inner Peace Better Health, where inner awareness meets better living. I'll see you in the next one.